Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Play, Pause, Rewind. Hope you are having a fantastic week so far. Niles, how have you been since we have last spoken?
Great, as always. I feel like I'm staying busy, and it's a nice snowy day outside here in Denver, so it's very fortunate. I feel very lucky to be inside and nice and warm today.
Yes.
How about you, Dylan?
Yeah, same. It's nice weather outside. I didn't realize it had started snowing last night, and I had to take Shadow out to the bathroom, and I was just like in my pajamas and flip-flops and walked outside and was just hit with a blast of snow in the face because it was super windy last night, so it was snowing sideways, and I was really cold, but it's all good, man. It's all good. But before we get into our main topic of the episode, which is the Batman, I want to talk quickly about this one bit of news that is tied a little bit to the Batman, because AMC Theaters announced, starting with the Batman, that they would be increasing individual ticket prices for like big blockbuster releases like Batman and Marvel stuff going forward. And I think this is interesting and could go one of a couple ways. So just like off the cuff, what is your reaction to that, and what do you think that might lead to?
So just so I'm clear, so they're like increasing like the tickets by like, I don't know, like a few dollars.
Yeah, it's just a few. It's just a few bucks, but
that's kind of a weird choice. Like I mean, I think in the short term, as a consumer, I'm like, I can shell out a few more dollars to go see like this movie if I'm really into it. Like Doctor Strange, of course, I'll like shell out some extra dough to go see that in theaters because that looks great. But yeah, that's that is kind of a weird change as a company to make. I feel like they're just really focused on prioritizing profit as much as possible. Did you have some thoughts on this?
I do. Yeah. So I've seen people going back and forth on this, and I think it could go a couple ways. One, you're absolutely right. They are a corporation. They're interested in profit. That is all, as always with every corporation. Money. But I also understand the decision. Like, theaters have been hit very hard in the last couple of years. There's still a pandemic happening everywhere. It may have slipped to the back of your mind due to other recent events, but it's still there. So I get it on that sense that they got to recoup costs somewhere. And the optimistic side of my brain would think, oh, well, there are people who want to go see a movie on the weekend, but oh no, the Batman ticket is $17, and then this other indie movie ticket like Cyrano is out or something, and that's only $11. Maybe I'll go see that instead. I don't think that's what's going to happen though, because one, I think we're movie people. We see lots of movies. Obviously, we've done this show for 30 episodes, but I would say the majority of movie fans are like, see a couple movies a year, and that's part of the problem Marvel has, is that they have so movies coming out a year on their own that a lot of casual moviegoers are probably only seeing the Marvel movies, right? Like that's their whole thing. And those people might now be less likely to go see indie movies and stuff like that because their movie budget is filled up faster. Right. And from the corporate side of it, now AMC definitively makes more money per ticket sale of the Batman than they do per ticket sale of Cyrano. I'm just using that in this example because it's out around now. I hope it's out. I want to go see it. So they are now incentivized as a company to dedicate more screening rooms to the Batman because they are getting more dollars per ticket sold. So it might lead to less movies being showcased in theaters.
Yeah, and I mean, people are gonna go to the movies because they have a particular movie that they want to see, like the Batman or what have you. So I think if you're going to the movies, you have a specific thing that you want to experience. And I guess the point that I'm just trying to make, I guess, is it doesn't matter like to me how much a movie costs, because I still want to see it. Whether it's like $11, $9, or like $15, like I'm still gonna like probably want to see it because I want to see this movie. The trailer looked great. I'm interested in it, like the Batman. But like with those smaller movies, I think it just places more emphasis on their own marketing and like trying to find ways to like get more people interested in seeing those smaller movies, like indie films and all that stuff.
And by definition, they have less money to spend on marketing.
Yes. And that poses a big problem, or a big challenge, I suppose, for them.
Yeah. And it's like the idea of going to the theater to like see what's on, that used to be a thing, but I don't, and maybe there are still people that do that, but I think for the most part, like, you're going to the theater at a specific time to catch the showing of the thing you want. And a lot of the times you already have your tickets on your phone. Like you're not going to the theater as an exploratory like endeavor to find something new. You're going for what you paid for. So it's, I'm a little worried. Not trying to be too cynical. We'll see how it shakes out, but enough about that. Let's talk about the Batman.
Batman.
And we'll do brief non-spoilers as always, and then we'll hop in. So directed by Matt Reeves, written and directed by Matt Reeves and Peter Craig. And I think specifically for this movie, we got to shout out the cinematographer, Greg Fraser, because this is a beautiful movie. Beautifully ugly in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Well, they did such a fantastic job with the lighting and really giving character to the city through the shots that they're showing us. And yeah, so we have to give that special shout out to that cinematographer, because it's just such a gorgeous film to look at. Like, it feels exactly the way that you want it to feel because of all those shots. It feels gritty, it feels dark. And I mean, every Batman film, I feel like it's just going to keep getting grittier and darker and grittier and darker, and this definitely is kind of moving in that direction of being very authentic to who Batman is, and to the world of Batman, as well as it's like this very dark, very crime-filled world with corruption and everything. And for the message, or like for the plot of the story, the visual element of it really just blends well with the narrative and the themes. It's stunning. And the cast is great too.
Yes.
we got an all-star packed cast here. Robert Pattinson is starring as Bruce Wayne, Batman, but we also have Zoe Kravitz.
It's just Kravitz.
Thank you. You know what? I'll just let you do names because I'm just so bad at it sometimes.
Zoe Kravitz, Paul Dano, Colin Farrell, unrecognizable in this.
Yes.
Jeffrey Wright, Andy Serkis, and John Turturro, the Jesus himself, makes an appearance.
Oh yeah.
He's great. They're all great.
Everyone does such a great job in this film. Like, they did great job on casting, and everyone's going to be like focused, I feel like hyper focused on comparing Robert Pattinson to the other Batman. We'll talk about that as we kind of get more into spoilers, of course, but I think he really made this role his own. Would you agree?
I agree. I don't think we see a different take on Bruce Wayne in this, which we'll get more details on later on, but it's like you see more of the mental toll that being Batman takes on him in this than I think you do even in the Bale ones. And Bale's touches on this as well, but we see much more of the like playboy persona Bruce Wayne in the Bale movies, and that is not part of this.
Yeah. There's none of that, and I'm perfectly okay with it.
Yeah, he's a reclusive weirdo in this movie, which is like appropriate. He's a billionaire and he dresses up like a bat. Like, billionaires are reclusive weirdos in the real world. They're not cool. None of them are cool. So yeah, it's like he shouldn't be cool. He's like a weird asshole who lives in a tower.
Yeah, it's like, of course he's gonna be a recluse. He's got an excessive amount of money. His parents were gunned down when he was a kid in front of his eyes. I would have some serious trauma.
Yeah, he has a lot of mental issues going through, but he's still like, he's not a bad person. That's not what I'm saying.
Totally, yeah.
Which I would say about real billionaires, but I won't say that about Bruce Wayne because he seems like a good guy. But he's portrayed much differently here, and it is this is a detective movie, very noir. there's a lot of Seven DNA in here, I think.
I
got a lot of Seven vibes, both in style and sort of subject matter, and it carries a lot from classic film noir as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, just a brief recap of the film, it's in simplest terms possible. In this film, we find Bruce Wayne / Batman. He's leaning more to this detective role in this movie as opposed to like these previous Batman films where he's not as much of a detective. So this one really leans hard into that narrative, and he's just trying to solve this series of connected murders that are being committed by the Riddler. While simultaneously he's trying to root out corruption in the city and just kind of carry on that classic Batman mission. I think at the start of the film he says like it's been 2 years since like I started doing this mission, and like so that's where we kind of enter into the story. Is it's not his origin story. He's not like getting all this stuff set up like in Batman Begins or anything like that. He's been the Batman for a bit and he's been fighting his mission, and just the story unfolds from there. And it is a very stark difference from previous Batman films, even from the Nolan films. I would say it's very different.
Yeah, both this and the Nolan movies take a very grounded, realistic look at Batman, but I think do it in very different ways. Like Nolan's is very like Gotham is Chicago because that's where they filmed a lot of it.
Yep.
And this Gotham, and maybe if you're more familiar with the cities they filmed, I forgot where they filmed exactly, but it like maybe it won't feel this way to you, but it feels more like a character, like a nightmarish noir hellscape. No offense to the people who live in these places. I'm sure the cities are very nice, but the style of the architecture, and what we'll talk. This isn't really a spoiler, so I can just talk about it here. But like the style and atmosphere of this movie is next level. Like has more personality than it has in the films for a very long time. It's a character in and of itself, even though that's a cliche thing to say. It's true. Gothic architecture everywhere, lots of dark places. It's almost always raining, etc. Like just noir tropes, like stark, dark environments with rain and just depressing vibes. Even Wayne Tower, where Bruce lives, no Wayne Manor in this, which is interesting. But even Wayne Tower, it's just dark and it looks like the inside of a cathedral, and it seems like it'd be very uncomfortable to live there. But but it was great. I loved it.
Yeah, it absolutely was. And I just looked it up real quick. It looks like they filmed a lot of those scenes in Liverpool, in the UK. And they also did some shots in Chicago. So you can never escape Chicago. No. But I think a lot of it was filmed in the UK, it looks like.
Okay.
But the noir tropes, they come through really strong. And this film, it's got a long run time. It's with 3 hours long. It really takes its time.
It does.
And I think that's simultaneously, a benefit and a downside for this movie, because it gives you ample time to tell your story, and you can really kind of flesh out these characters and make the narrative complex and kind of have some good twists, like, oh, it was actually this character, not that character, kind of like these cool reveals. And that really works for the Riddler as the villain, because he's all about solving puzzles, and it really meshes well with the detective angle as well. But and on this at the same time, because it's 3 hours, that's a lot of plot to be squeezed into a small time frame. And we'll talk about more of this in spoilers and stuff. But I think there's moments where I think the dialogue is kind of heavier at certain points, where it's like, okay, they're throwing a lot at us right here. And then I think this is just kind of a problem with some of these longer films too, like even the Lord of the Rings, where it has like multiple endings, where it's like, okay, there's an ending here, and then there's an ending in the Shire, and then there's an ending at the docks, and they go off. So I felt like that might have been a little bit of a problem here with this film too. But overall, I'm not like super upset with it. I really was blown away by this movie. Like through and through.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't have any problem with the length or anything like that, other than like with movies this long, I have to just dehydrate myself for the entire day, so I don't have to go to the bathroom in the middle. Like, but my stance is, and always probably will be, it's like no movie is too long or too short. A movie can feel too long or too short, and that's a sign of the pacing. But like, a movie needs to be the length that the story it's telling requires, right?
Yes.
And if your movie feels too long, that means that you are not telling your story well in that instance, and you should edit or maybe rewrite some scenes or something like that. But I did not feel that here. I felt this worked really well. Overall, I would say the movie is a 3-hour emo tone poem meditating on the concepts of corruption, justice, and accountability, and it's incredibly horny. That's my summary of the movie.
Yeah, that's accurate. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I've been formulating that sentence in my mind for the last couple days, and that's
yeah, I think that's pretty apt for a description. Also with this film, I think it definitely kind of subverted my expectations a little bit. I know that turn of phrase isn't like the best. I don't know. I feel like that phrase kind of got like hijacked like in recent years by some fandoms of being like, oh, they subvert. I think it was like Star Wars.
It was The Last Jedi, because Rian Johnson said a quote that was like,
right,
the goal is not just to subvert expectations, but to tell an interesting story or something like that. And the section of Star Wars fans you're referencing, because they're stupid, did not read what he actually said and said, oh, Rian Johnson wanted to subvert my expectations and didn't care about the story. And then they made thousands of YouTube videos about it over the course of the next half decade to where people like believe that that's what he said. It's actually not. Read the quote. It's very funny. It's very funny how like not the time, but
yeah, for sure. We'll go on. We've got plenty to talk about with Star Wars at some point. We'll have an episode on that.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think back to Batman, it definitely kind of subverted my expectations personally. Going into this film, from the trailer and everything, I was predicting that it was going to be more of a tale like the Riddler was going to destroy Batman's reputation. It was going to be kind of like Sherlock, where like Moriarty destroys Sherlock's reputation.
Oh, like the show Sherlock?
Yeah, in the show, the BBC show. Yeah, that's kind of the direction I was thinking, where it was going to, Riddler's going to like frame Batman for all these crimes and make it seem like he was responsible for being like this complicated, pathological psychopath. And I'm glad they didn't take that route. The narrative that comes across in this film is far more interesting than that one I think would have ever been. Before we kind of dive into spoilers, I think we'll be referencing the Nolan trilogy a fair bit. So I just kind of wanted to remind our viewers that we have a Dark Knight episode.
That's true. We do. It's one of our earliest episodes.
Yeah, we emphasized the rewind aspect of our name, and we took a break that week and went back and watched that film and gave some thoughts on it. So I recommend all of our listeners go check out that episode. Yeah,
and I don't think it's particularly like effective to compare the quality of this to the quality of the Nolan things. It's like they're very different. That's one of the cool things about Batman as a character and why he keeps getting rebooted, other than the fact that he's incredibly financially bankable for Warner Brothers. But it's like you can do a lot of different things with him. The Nolan trilogy is excellent. Yeah. This is also excellent in an entirely different way. They have almost nothing in common, other than that they're both very grounded takes on the Batman character. Which like there are some cool supernatural Batman villains that it's like, I'd like to see them maybe, and I don't know if they would work in this style, but maybe they would. Who knows? We'll see. Should we do spoilers?
Let's dive into it. Yeah,
cool. All right. So remember, not a spoiler, but remember in our Snyder Justice League video how I mentioned that Batman was too well lit? This is how you light Batman. This is the correct way. But
yes, the lighting in this film, like we kind of touched on it earlier, but it seriously establishes a tone, a presence for Batman, and it just speaks to, like, I just feel like his trauma, what his character is all about, like the complexity of the layers, like the lighting. This is absolutely how you light Batman if you want to do a really gritty take. You know, I think the lighting for Batman in like the Nolan trilogy and the other Batman films is fine.
Oh yeah,
the lighting here is it's beautiful. It's a masterpiece.
Yeah, it's just like Batman when he is shown fully, like in like daylight, he looks pretty silly because Batman is an inherently silly concept. I think everybody knows this, which is fine. All superheroes are inherently silly concepts, but the like grittiness and seriousness with which Batman takes himself is funny because he's ridiculous. But let's talk about Bruce Wayne, the Batman himself, Rabat Bat, as certain communities online have dubbed him. That is
Rabat
Bat. That is the only appropriate name to call him. If you disagree, you're wrong. But
it's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful, intentionally so. It's from the Weekly Planet community. One of my favorite podcasts. But Robert Pattinson is excellent. He's a really good actor. Like, he's a very impressive performer. I think he will be remembered as one of the best of this era of filmmaking.
Oh yeah, he's phenomenal, and it really pains me that one of his like first roles was Twilight, and like I think that just sunk his reputation so hard for so many people. It certainly did for me. When those movies were coming out, I was like, that guy, fuck that guy, fuck Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, I mean, I have no strong opinions about Twilight, honestly. I've never watched them. Like, I've never watched them. They look like shit, but whatever, like they're just mediocre romance movies based on what were immensely popular romance books at the time. And like, it got memed on so hard because it was like a thing girls liked. And there were some guys who were like, fuck that, fuck Twilight. It was like, it's inoffensive. Well, actually, apparently it is kind of offensive in different ways. But they do have a storyline where an adult Taylor Lautner imprints on a baby and then becomes her boyfriend.
Right, that whole thing.
Maybe we should eventually talk about Twilight for fun. That would
be a fun episode, actually, because I've never seen them. Yeah, let's keep that on the radar then.
Yeah, we'll put that on the back burner for now. But Robert Pattinson, and Kristen Stewart's a great performer as well, by the way.
Yeah. It's nice to see that, like, it's nice to see that those actors, after having that kind of start in such like a hyper spotlight, and these characters are like, they just shot to like fame really quickly, and everyone across the world all of a sudden knew who Robert Pattinson was and who Kristen Stewart was, and that was like over 10 years ago now. I think so. I think it was like a decade ago, and then now fast forward, and they're doing these really complex roles like the Batman and the Devil All the Time and
Lighthouse.
Lighthouse. Like, Robert Pattinson's doing great work, and so is Kristen Stewart. With I still need to see that Princess Diana movie, but that looks great as well.
I didn't even know about that. Yeah, but I think Robert Pattinson and Daniel Radcliffe actually took very similar career trajectories after their big like YA projects, because like, and Robert Pattinson in Harry Potter as well as Cedric Diggory. R.I.P. But they both like made incredible bank early on in their career, and then after that, we're like, give me the weirdest shit for 10 years, and then now eventually like Pattinson's Batman. But I think he said in an interview he was like very selective about the roles to the point where it was annoying to people he worked with, and then he would like, fuck it, I'll just play a lighthouse keeper that fucks a mermaid. Like, why not?
He's a neat guy, and he did an excellent job with this role as Batman. I remember watching like an interview really quick of like how he like kind of landed on the voice for Batman too, because I feel like, especially because in the Nolan trilogy, I feel like so many people like latched onto that about Christian Bale. Was like, it was really dark and down.
Where's
here.
Rachel?
Where are the drugs going?
I forgot that's the best one. Where are the other drugs going?
And from my recollection of that interview, I think you'd have to look it up, but it was like Pattinson was like, I want to take a completely different approach, come in with like kind of a whisper. And they were like, Christian Bale kind of did that initially too. And he was like, oh, okay. But they both found the kind of the correct voice for the character. Like Pattinson was like, I'm not gonna care about switching my voice. I don't care. I'm Bruce Wayne, I'm Batman. I feel like he's gonna have the same cadences, all the same mannerisms and all that stuff. And
which is how it usually is, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Well, yeah, but with Christian Bale, he definitely tried to hide his Batman affiliation. So he had the voice change, but this character did not have that hesitancy. And it's just surprising that no one made the connection. That's Batman.
Right. Well, and I think that's why they did the voice in the Nolan trilogy. And it never bothered me specifically, but like it is goofy. And I think this movie just like was like a smart man learns from his own mistakes, a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. Like they saw that, and they saw that people saw it as goofy, and like just it's grounded that he would change his voice. It makes sense to hide the identity, but it sounds dumb, so let's not do it.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, I think this character, Robert Pattinson, he does a good job playing like just about any role, I'd say. And he does a good job of playing like a emotional, traumatized, rich orphan, which is what Bruce Wayne is. And you see that trauma and like this call for vengeance come through the character pretty regularly throughout the film, which was great. And I really appreciated his like dynamics with other characters, especially like with Gordon. Like the dynamic that Bruce Wayne had with him was really kind of cool. Like I think the Penguin was like good cop and psychologically disturbed cop. Like it's like, yep, that's kind of what that is. Right there.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think where we find Bruce in this, I want to talk about a little bit later in regard to theme as well, but where we find Batman in this, it's like he has been a vigilante for a little while, but he isn't really all the way to Batman yet. He's like he's wearing the costume, he's doing the Batman things, but obviously like he talks about, it's like crime is up, like what the fuck, like it's not working. And we'll talk about it thematically because it's like there's a reason it's not working. His approach is not fully formed yet, and he's still learning, which I think is an interesting place to pick up with Batman. And it's an interesting and more realistic way probably to tackle the actions of him. And like in the Nolan movies, what he does generally works pretty well for a while until they lie about Harvey Dent and it all comes crashing down. But like it is effective at fighting the crime. And in this, it's like it's not, because he's going about it the wrong way. And I think that's a really intelligent way to tackle the character.
Yeah, and I think, we could talk about this a little bit more later too, but, those two films, I think they both approached crime with different standpoints. And I think that's has to do with like, the climate of the time to like 2008 versus like 2022. There's like a whole 14-year gap between these two, but I feel like, and yes, please go check out the Dark Knight episode. We talk about this a lot more, but the Dark Knight, I feel like, doesn't really give humanity to criminals as much. And this movie definitely shows, oh, this person's committing a crime for a reason. It's not because they're a bad guy. They just they're scared. They're poor. They need to do this.
Yeah, and it's whereas the Dark Knight trilogy, there is the criminal element, Carmine Falcone, or Falcone in this one. I honestly prefer Falcone as the pronunciation, but I know it's wrong, but whatever. And then Maroni, like there's the mob, and then there's the government, and they're very much separate forces. Whereas in this, I think more accurately to real life, it's like the government, they're the criminals. Like they're the reason this is allowed to prosper is because like the mob boss is the real mayor in practice. Like that was a very interesting take. And even the like typically more sanitized elements of Gotham's elite and political structure, the Waynes, are part of this as well. less so. It seems like they were trying to do the right thing, but it's like Thomas Wayne became indebted to Carmine Falcone. Martha Wayne's from the Arkham family. Is that a thing? Like, I've never. Is that part of her backstory? I've never heard of that before. That's very interesting. So it's like two legacy families who, with the intent of doing something good with like the renewal fund, basically allowed horrible things to happen and corruption to fester with no light shined on it for years. Like, that's very interesting. But and on that note, I guess that's a good transition to the Riddler, the villain of the movie, because his motivation is exposing this corruption. I mean, another case of the villain like being kind of right until the end of the movie, where they're like, I'm gonna blow up the city and flood everything. Like,
or it's like we can't 100% say this guy has the right idea, so let's make him be the villain in the end and commit some horrible violent crimes.
Which is a problem in this genre a lot of the time. It's like Falcon and Winter Soldier did it as well. It's like the villain's making a really good socio-political comment, gotta have them blow up some innocent people. Like, and it is kind of annoying because it feels like it's deliberately undermining those ideologies that are good points that are being made, you know. But
well, yeah, and I mean, you know, he also was killing people throughout the entire movie too. So yeah,
he is a serial killer, but he is a serial killer, and he's not a good person. But and his commentary is correct, though. It's like there is a lot of corruption, but you know, maybe don't murder the people who are corrupt. Maybe you just bring their corruption to light. Like, if you have the evidence, show the evidence.
Yeah, like this could have gone in a lot more of a constructive way, but you chose not to. But yeah, that is kind of an interesting thing. Like, we did talk about them, Falcon Winter Soldier, and I mean, yeah, I feel like that might need a whole video in and of itself. It's like, how to like properly discuss these complex subjects without vilifying one side, or like say like climate change, we need to do something about climate change, and then the villain ends up being like flooding the city. It's like, well, that sends the wrong message.
I think Black Panther does this the best out of the genre films that do it, because like the movie is very explicit that Killmonger is correct, and T'Challa takes that lesson and goes forth to take action in response to it. But we're also talking about two incredibly large mega corporations allowing social commentary to exist, but not too much, because then eyes might be put on them, and they might have to change. So
can't have that.
Disney and Warner Brothers don't like that. No.
Just show that you're on the right side. Just hint at it and then move on.
Yeah. It's
well. Speaking of the villains, corporations, the villain in this movie is the Riddler, played by Paul Dano, and I think he did such a great job in this movie. Like, I know him best from, I think, Little Miss Sunshine.
Okay.
And a lot of times elapsed between this film and the Batman.
Yeah.
But he's come a long way from that time, and I think he did a really good job with this villain. You could really see the influences of like real serial killers, like the Zodiac killer, which I personally enjoyed. You got the Codex in there. The kind of, I don't know how familiar all of you are with the images of the Zodiac killer, but he used to wear this like bag over his head.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And he had like this, like, I think he had like a little cross or something on his
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. He had like a little symbol on his face, but like, he also wore glasses and stuff. So you never really knew what his face looked like. Like, there's some people who like have drawn sketches of what they think he looks like, or looked like at the time when he committed all those crimes. But, the disguise of the Riddler, I would say, is very similar as well to the Zodiac killer. And the puzzles and everything, I thought that was really neat too. That connection to Zodiac is just really neat to me.
Yeah, he was great. He was really terrifying. I mean, his introduction is pretty scary. in the mansion, and you get that like point of view shot of him watching the house, and I that was a subversion of my expectations too. I thought they were doing a twist on the Wayne's murder at first.
Oh yeah, I thought it was like Batman looking into someone's house for a minute, and then I was like, oh no, this is sinister.
Yeah, well, I thought that at first too, and then I saw the parents with the little kid, and I'm like, oh, it's the Waynes, and we're seeing this again for some reason. And then it wasn't that, but there is the parallel between Bruce and that kid that comes back a couple times. So it was like, it's very effective. Liked it.
Yeah, I did appreciate that too. But yeah, the Riddler, he comes across so calculated, cold, and he's an interesting one too, because he feels like he's filled with self-pity. To me, of like just feeling sorry for himself or sorry for the city. Like, there's nothing I can do to fix it, so I'm just gonna feel bad and try and manipulate the situation as best I can with a bunch of codes and stuff. So I think maybe also there's a little bit of mental illness in there. If there was, I think he did a good job of kind of like walking the fine line of not being like unfair with the representation of mental illness or portraying it in the wrong light. So I think he did a good job of kind of walking that line.
Yeah. I like that he was an influencer. His little community.
That was
hi
neat.
Guys.
I'm enjoying these films, like bringing more social media into the conversation.
Yeah. It was interesting how much of the film Paul Dano is just under the mask. Like, kudos to him for being okay with that, because he's only you only see his face in 2 or 3 scenes towards the very end. But I really, really effective performance, I think. And because there's a lot of the movie dedicated to the criminal element stuff and Carmine Falcone, and it is tied together with the Riddler's motivation and actions very nicely. Sort of like the opposite of the first Fantastic Beasts movie, where the 2 plot threads were going along and had nothing to do with each other until very abruptly at the end. This is the opposite of that. This is that done well by a good screenwriter. Yeah. But he it was great. And I love the crisis of conscience his actions deliver to Bruce during the course of the movie as well, regarding the Waynes. That was interesting.
I do appreciate that as well. And he definitely felt like a Moriarty character. Like, even though it didn't take the same approach as that Sherlock show from the BBC. Okay. So I'm happy it didn't do that. But to me, he felt like he was more, he was hands off. He was a hands off villain.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean.
Like,
now. Yeah.
Like the Joker or Bane in the Nolan trilogy, they're like in the action. They're fighting Batman. They're going toe to toe with him. Like they're punching, and they're really down in the trenches with everyone and kind of being the leader. Here, the Riddler's like, he's separated by a screen from everyone. You're never really like in the same room as him. Like, he's always, there's this degree of separation, and he's just kind of the person pulling the strings behind the scenes. And
I see what you mean by the Moriarty comparison now. I was like, aside of the nest, I'm like, what? Okay, but no, I get it.
He's
let's talk about the Penguin though. Colin Farrell, great makeup and prosthetics,
astounding.
Amazing. He's pretty funny as well. When they're showing him the crime scene photos, it's like, I don't want to see that. Stop it.
It's like, why'd you show me that? He was kind of like an Italian, from The Sopranos, would just be like, come on, I'm eating here.
I also love how he's just like, it's La Rata. You guys don't speak Spanish. Like, how the hell did you not get that? Also on that riddle specifically, it was like El Rata Altada, I think was the word. It was like winged rat or something. And I'm like, guys, it's a fucking bat. Come on. That was the only time where it's like, Batman, you specifically should have gotten this by now.
You're talking about a rat with wings. Guys, come on. It's so easy. Just it's right there.
It's so obvious. But
that was funny.
Yeah, that was great. The car chase with the Penguin was great.
Yes, he was a very like, because part of me, yeah, is hesitant that they are doing the HBO spinoff for him. Because it's like, I don't think every character from the DC universe needs a spinoff show. Like Peacemaker worked as a spinoff. That worked just fine, but I just don't care at all about a spinoff for the Penguin.
Right. I agree. I'm not a fan of this trend either. I'm like, because we're gonna get the Batman 2, and unless the Penguin spinoff is like a prequel or something, maybe, sure. But I'm like, that's taking story fuel away from what could happen in the Batman sequel. I'm not a fan of this trend in general. It's like people are like, oh, I want a Finn Star Wars spinoff that like set after the sequel trilogy. It's like, why do you? Or I want a Ray movie. It's like, well, we got those 3 of them. But I'm like, why do you want to pull one character out of the story they're a part of and then just like shove them somewhere else? It's so weird to me, because I'm like, character, it's like the fucking Boba Fett show. Sorry, again, another episode. But I'm like,
yes.
Boba, like he existed within the context of a broader story, and you pull him out, and there's not enough there to carry a TV show, so you just shove other shit in it. It's like, stop doing that. It's everything exists together to tell a whole story. Like, don't just take, unless there's a really cool idea that they're pursuing. If it's idea first, then show, okay, but it feels weird because to me, he's being set up as the primary antagonist for Batman 2 in this. That's what the language of the ending really hinted at. He is filling the void that Carmine Falcone left, and he is the new antagonist. That's what I got from that, and that's what I want to see. So I agree with you.
Yeah, that's what I got from the ending as well. And, you know, I agree. Yeah, this trend is not my favorite. I understand that, you know, you need more content. You always need more content as a media corporation. Sure, whatever. But come on, you can come up with better things than just, let's do a spin-off show for that person and that person and that person and that person. It's like, just come on, you can do better than that.
Right. And it's like, now you have to, unless it's a prequel. If it's a prequel, this is not a problem. But it's like, if you make a Penguin spinoff show, you probably have to justify, it's like, why isn't Batman here? And then that's just weird. You have to have this artificial constraint as to why the characters that you have not written in are around.
Yeah.
And it's annoying. It's a very weird storytelling limitation that just like, don't do it.
Well, yeah. And it's especially since this Batman movie feels self-contained. Like, from my understanding, this is not related to anything that's been created so far in the DC universe. Like, this is a kind of standalone film in a standalone universe. Like, you know, and I'm okay with that. Like, I don't need a Gotham that has like Superman and Wonder Woman bouncing around doing all kinds of action and damage and stuff too.
Yeah.
Like, so since it's like so self-contained, it's like, why do we need a Penguin show? You know, but you know, overall, he's a good character. You know, like, if the show comes out, I'll certainly give it a try. But you know, it's not like just because he did a fantastic job with the character and the aesthetic's great and he's just got such a great presence and he's funny and he's got these, he's well-rounded as a character. That doesn't just necessarily mean he should just get a show.
No, it's like, if Batman Begins to just come out and they're like, we're gonna make a Scarecrow series, like, why?
Yeah.
Well, like, and they could have, with the structure of Batman Begins, like, Scarecrow was still out there at the end of the movie. The Dark Knight starts with him getting caught by Batman. It's like, there's stuff there that they could have told the story there, but we were in like a slightly wiser era of storytelling at that point, I think. So they knew not to do that.
Yeah, we're like, we don't need to do that. We're fine.
Yeah. But yeah, the Penguin's great. I'm not excited for his show, but who knows? You know, we'll see. Let's talk about Catwoman. Selena Kyle.
Yeah, Selena Kyle.
Zoe Kravitz.
Yeah. To me, you know, compared to like the other Catwomen that have come before, because I feel like we're always going to draw that comparison in these kinds of movies. To me, she really felt like one of the most accurate representations of Selena Kyle on screen. The appearance was on point, but I think also, just like her character was on point as well. Like the way she acted, her personality, like she carried herself how I imagine a Catwoman would carry herself.
Yeah, she was great. I don't have any huge notes, but I think it's a good performance. The character was great. Her motivation made sense. I enjoyed the twist that she is Falcone's daughter. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, I didn't really see that coming either.
Another great example of multiple plot threads being tied together in ways that make sense. It really added an extra creepy element to him hitting on her all the time because he was not aware that she was his daughter. But
oh yeah, that is weird.
But yeah, the romance between them I think was a little undercooked. I would like to see it built upon more in the next film because she leaves Gotham at the end, but I imagine she will return in a sequel. I would be shocked if she doesn't.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I agree. The kind of romance they were setting up between them, it felt a little forced. But yeah, I think if they had a little more time, a little more screen time, something like that, maybe that could have fixed that problem a little bit for me because they definitely had
their chemistry was there.
Yeah, exactly.
The writing of the story was the least well done part of the movie, I think.
Yeah, they had good chemistry, good touching scenes together, but yeah, I think they could spend a little bit more time on that. And yeah, if she comes back, I'm happy to see that. I did hear in one interview, or at least when I was scrolling through Instagram, I think she kind of got into a little bit of method acting for this role as well, where she was like drinking milk out of a bowl with cats, or spending a lot of time with cats to prepare for it. It's like,
they released a picture of her doing that. It's
how bizarre.
Yeah, but she's really great, and I think their relationship at this point was less about romance and more about wanting to fuck each other, which
seems like it. Yeah,
I respect it. They don't know each other, but they think each other's hot. That's fine.
Get after it.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah, good character. I hope we see more of her. That would be a shame if we do not.
So we've talked about some of these characters in the movie. Now I think maybe we could transition a little bit and talk a little bit more about some of these themes and some of these other points in the film. That might be kind of a good direction to take us now.
I agree. Oh wait, we haven't talked about Gordon yet. We should talk about him real quick before we do.
Oh that. Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's talk about Gordon.
Yeah, Jeffrey Wright is awesome. This is at least one of my favorite Gordons. I really like his mannerisms. I like his relationship with Batman. It's funny how he just calls him man all the time.
Yeah, they're obviously buds.
Yeah, they're buds, but he's also a little bit uneasy at the same time. I also like that with him and Catwoman, they're both cast by or played by Black performers in this, but they don't do the normal thing that a lot of these stories do when they do that, and they make a whole aspect of their personality just this is a Black person, so they have perspectives on issues about race, and they're going to talk about them a lot. It's they don't there's one line in the movie where white privilege is said by someone, and that's it. And it made me so happy because I just know so many reactionaries just blew a fucking gasket when that happened, and that gives me pleasure. But but Gordon is just Gordon, and he's Black. He doesn't have a scene where he offers his perspective on police as a Black person because it's not appropriate for this story. Commentary is important, and this movie has plenty of it, but it's done more intelligently than just saying shit to you, the audience.
I agree, and I think Gordon, he was a good choice for this role. I don't know how much I have to say about him, honestly, but I think he was a good source of comedic relief. He was a good source of kind of keeping the plot moving. I appreciated when they're in the the police station, it just kind of whispers to him punch me in the face,
Yeah,
like
it's
run
so
up to the
funny.
roof, like here's a key, get out, like
Yeah.
I'm on your side. Like it's always nice to know that there's Jim Gordon in your back pocket, and he's the one good cop in the entire goddamn state.
Yeah, I loved too when they meet up later and he's like, you could have pulled that punch. I did. Then
Yeah.
people who say this movie has no comedy are wrong. There are lots of jokes. They're just not, the movie doesn't pause for laughter.
Yeah, and they're really quick when they do show up, and it's like, yeah, they're clever with the comedy in this movie too.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about themes now. Sorry to
Oh, totally. We needed to talk about him. I think one thing that we have to talk about, because it's Batman, is the idea of vigilantism. You know, whether it's ethical to commit crimes to prevent or mitigate other crimes, it's, you know, it's kind of a weird concept, but it always pops up when you're talking about Batman. And you know, I think the theme of vigilantism is super present in the Nolan trilogy, you know, especially in the first two films, you know, because the cops are always relying on Batman to help them solve crimes and like actually do their jobs.
Right.
And then when he's, you know, there's like people who will come forward and say, well, you know, what gives him the right to, you know, gallivant around in the night and punch people and, you know, prevent crimes, but you commit crimes in the process. You know, you committed like 3 B&Es just to get that piece of evidence that now is not admissible in a court of law. Like,
I do love when he broke in and the cop is like, you can't be here, and he just looks at him. He's like, you can't open that, and he just looks at him. He's like, okay, fine.
I'm wearing gloves, asshole.
That was really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like in the real world, obviously, vigilantism is unacceptable. I think that's in Batman, like Gotham. I love the theory going around the last year or so that Gotham is just like a cursed city, and that's why it's like. So it's like there will always be just garbage happening there, and no amount of like proper behavior will fix it. So Batman is necessary in Gotham. But yeah,
he always has to be there. Yeah.
And the movie does an interesting thing with the common criticism, fair criticism of like, Bruce Wayne, you are a billionaire. You could be doing so much for the city if you like used your finances to make it better. And one, in general, Bruce Wayne does that. It's just not the focus of the story because we're here for a Batman story. Like he does philanthropy, blah, blah, blah. He has the like fund for the orphanage or whatever. But this movie tackles that. It's like Thomas Wayne did that. He made the renewal fund, and that became the source of the problems of this movie because he made like $1 billion fund with no oversight. So it makes a point. It's like you can't just blindly throw money at things. And then to be fair to him, he died. So he didn't really have an opportunity to do much with it. But it's like the idea, it's like, oh, just throw money. It's like you aren't fixing the system. You just put a fund in place. Like,
yeah, where it's like, I'll let other people figure out how to fix it. I'll just throw money at it until it goes away.
Yeah. Which is why the real solution is to tax Thomas Wayne appropriately so that the city can make use of his tax revenue to inspire systemic change. Oh my God.
Well, hopefully that new Bella Real mayor can fix that problem.
Yeah. But it's good that it addressed that criticism and said, like, look,
yes,
try to do the right thing. It was an individual solution to a systemic problem, and the corrupt people took advantage of it in the wake of his death. Very good. Very smart.
Yes. Yeah. And, you know, I appreciate that commentary and how they approach that. And like you said, yeah, in real life, no one wants a Batman type character to exist. Like if in Denver, you know, there was some masked person running around in the middle of the night, kicking people's asses and stopping crimes, I'd be really upset, and I'd probably assume that they're like targeting homeless people and people who are in poverty, and I'd be really against that.
Yeah, know? Because like that Batman does target a lot of low-level criminals who, in the real world, low-level crime is, again, a result of systemic failures where people are desperate for, food. Like, so yeah, in the real world, vigilantism is unacceptable, but superhero movies are escapism to a degree, so it's okay.
Yeah, here it's fine. In the world, not so much. No one's above the law. But I thought this film did a good job of kind of like bringing that theme to the surface, but not like making it super central. Like they wanted to touch on other things too.
Right. But it does, when we touched on this earlier, but where Bruce is in his development as Batman, it's like his brand of vigilantism in this is he is vengeance. And it's the first thing he says, really. Yes. And this really, and he talks about in his opening monologue, which I'm not usually a fan of monologues, but it is kind of a trope of noir, so it's fine here. But he mentions how, like, I've been doing this for 2 years and crime is up, like things are worse, and I'm like left wondering if I'm doing the right thing. It's like, good, because you're not, because you're focused on vengeance and fear. And that's his arc in this movie, is learning how to be better, how to stop being a vigilante and become a superhero, I think, is what he learned.
Yeah. It absolutely is. And I'm glad you brought that line up, because it is an interesting line, because he said that is the first thing that we hear Batman say, but then later on in the film, in that final kind of climactic fight at the during the floods, he beats up this one Riddler henchman, and then they take off his mask and they're like, who are you? And he's like, me, I'm vengeance.
Yeah.
So like, it's not just something that Batman says, it's something that like one of his opponents says as well. And it just kind of highlights this parallel between both of their experiences and how both of them are just kind of, they feel that they're doing the right thing in their mind. They're avenging, this idea. They're avenging their past. Their purpose is fair. It's just, it's retribution. They're both driven by these missions of vengeance. And, Batman's fighting to kind of avenge his family and his city. And then that henchman is fighting to avenge himself and his friends and his family. And it's just so interesting. I thought that was such an excellent way to kind of, draw those two together.
Right. And it's sort of a dark twist on the opening of The Dark Knight, where they're the copycat Batman. Because it's like they were inspired by Batman's actions to become vigilantes themselves and fight crime. And the Riddler in this and his followers are also inspired by Batman to fight corruption. But it's dark because they, it's because of their actions. Like, and that's a very effective lesson and theme for Bruce to have in this movie, because because beating the shit out of like low-level criminals is not going to fix anything. And that's pretty much all he was doing. He wasn't addressing any of the problems that Gotham has. He was just beating people up.
Yeah. It's like you're using fear to keep like the lower people in mind, like for the lower classes, the poor and those impoverished populations. And it's like, how is that really contributing to society? And yeah, it's to your point too. It's like, what is the proper way to inspire people? Like, if you inspire them one way, you could get something like January 6th, like they attack the Capitol and they try to overturn the results of an election. And then another way that you can inspire someone is just through a speech. Even though they gave speeches before that whole event went down, it was like, what is the end goal here? Like, what are you
inspiring them to do is the important thing. And
what actions?
Yeah. And your methods of creating inspiration are important in that. Like if you're, I don't know, just regarding the 2020 election, it's like, you have Trump lying about the results of it for months on end to a very vulnerable and gullible base that he has. On the other hand, you have AOC doing a Twitch stream with a bunch of Twitch streamers playing Among Us as a method to get people to vote. One is bad, one is good. AOC is the good one. Like she's not a perfect person. Like she's an elected official. She has some views that don't really totally work, but it's like that is inspiring societal like action in a good way.
Yeah.
It's getting people involved in the thing that they are meant to do to make our country a good place to be.
Exactly. Taking a more constructive approach rather than destructive. Yeah.
Whereas Trump wanted to overthrow the government.
Yeah. Straight up.
Yeah.
And that's also interesting because, you know, in the Batman, he's this rich kid orphan. And then you have the henchman for the Riddler, and there are these poor societal rejects, you know? So it's like these two different worlds of like, someone who's like up in their ivory tower looking down on Gotham, and then these people down here who feel like, God, that guy's not giving us enough money. Like, what, they forgot about us down here.
Right. And the Riddler makes that great point. It is a great point about the way the media treats different people. Like when the Waynes get killed, it was always like the poor Bruce Wayne, brah, brah, brah. And it's like, and it's I forget what the actual name for it is, but it's like when like a blonde white girl goes missing in America, it's like the media covers it and they're like, where is she? How can we help her? How can we find her? And it's like, this shit happens every day to thousands of people, but it's like, they aren't white blonde girls, so the media doesn't cover them. And like that's a very valid point about how like we latch on to characters, and the wealthy and the famous are characters to a lot of regular people, and then they make a story about it where it's like the same exact thing is happening to someone much less fortunate, but they're not a character, so they don't get a story. It's very it's a very pointed criticism of our media landscape. Because we do this all the time. Like we saw this with the like Gabby Petito stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. I thought that's exactly what you were talking about. Gabby Petito.
And it's like, and it doesn't diminish the horrible things that happen to her or anyone else that gets these stories, but it is like, it's very selective who the media picks as our main characters. And it like in the fucking Ukraine situation, it's like countries are doing the right thing and letting Ukrainian refugees in. But it's very interesting how receptive they are to Ukrainian refugees, but not Syrian refugees. And then they're even saying the quiet part out loud. One guy even said like, these are people who look like us with blonde hair and blue eyes. It's like, really? That's the terminology you chose to use.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that's at the same time as the Ukraine conflict is going on, or the Ukraine invasion, I should say.
Yeah, the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
The Russian invasion of Ukraine. But, there's other conflicts going on in the world right now. Like, there's a civil war, I think, in Ethiopia going on right now. And I barely see any news coverage about that. It is kind of interesting how the media will highlight specific events over others, and of course doesn't diminish them, doesn't say that like we're not saying the invasion of Ukraine isn't horrible, because it's a horrible event and shouldn't be happening, but why aren't we talking about these other conflicts going on in the world, or these other murders? And
it's because Russia is our adversary, whereas when we do the same exact thing in the Middle East, it's we had to do it. When Israel bombs the living fuck out of Palestinians, they had to do it. When Saudi Arabia bombs the living fuck out of Yemen, I think they had to do it because they're our allies. And then they're us. So when we do the bad things, they're good. But when Russia does the bad things, they're bad. No, they're just bad things. They're just bad.
They're all bad things. And, everyone's just kind of a little delusional.
Yeah, but it does. And I mean, we went a little far away from the initial point, but it is an effective message that like who is doing the thing and who is the victim of the thing greatly impacts how the media covers the thing. And that leads to the proliferation of injustice everywhere. And it's
all for vengeance.
All for vengeance. Speaking about injustice, let's talk about cops.
Cops, bad cops. So in our Dark Knight episode, which I encourage our listeners to go check out, we talk about how in The Dark Knight it kind of feels a little bit like a pro cop movie.
No more dead cops.
Yeah, no more dead cops. Like, it's just such a travesty that these cops are getting killed. Like, oh, you couldn't move into another career. But but you know, that movie, to me, there are some pro cop elements to it, and we touched on this a little bit earlier too, where the criminals in the Dark Knight trilogy are not necessarily viewed as victims of their socioeconomic standings, or of the justice system in general. They're just kind of viewed as criminals. They stole a loaf of bread, therefore they're a criminal, therefore they don't deserve any like consideration beyond that.
As Bruce Wayne says explicitly, criminals aren't complicated.
Yeah, criminals aren't complicated, sure. But you know, what I did appreciate about this film too is that it's clearly not as pro cop as The Dark Knight. Like, I encourage you all to go rewatch The Dark Knight at some point, and you'll see, wow, this is really pro cop. But compare that to The Dark
Knight Rises, even more so.
Yeah, it's a little problematic.
It's not great. There is one scene in this movie that is like eye roll inducing regarding this, because when they're arresting Carmine and they walk outside and Gordon is just like, I guess not all of us want your payroll. It was very much like a not all cops thing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, all right, man. And I get logistically, like, they had to have a way for Falcone to get arrested, except they really didn't, because Riddler kills him 30 seconds after that. But it is much less pro cop, and there's that great element where they're looking for like the rat who's been informing to the police, and then they realize at a certain point it's like, oh no, he's not informing to the police. The police and the mayor and the DA are informing to him, and that him is Carmine, and he is in charge. Like, that was fun. I liked it.
I appreciated that as well. And yeah, to your point, it definitely feels like in this movie, not all the cops are corrupt, but it is kind of a blanket of corruption. Like, you will have some good apples in there, like Gordon and maybe some of those other cops that were kind of by Batman's side. But a large portion of the police department is paid off. They're paid off by the mob, and they're just kind of like looking the other way, or they're on their side. They're part of the drug trade, all that stuff. It's like, this movie is not, compared to like the Dark Knight trilogy, the Batman certainly is not hoisting up law enforcement on a pedestal and saying,
no,
these guys are what are the defining line between like civilized society and chaos. This movie is saying, no, it's a little more complicated than that. There's a lot of corruption that's systemic. It's there. And then once that person is removed from power, like Falcone, or however you pronounce it.
Just Falcone in this one. But
Falcone, thank you. Like, once he's removed from power, then there's a power gap. And the Penguin's going to jump into that power gap. And what has really changed, you know?
Right, yeah. And it's like, I'm not mad at the Batman for not going like full ACAB or something. It doesn't need to do that. This is like, Batman is going to work with police. That is in the nature of the character. It's fine. And also the way police departments perpetuate injustice, it's like, there are good people who are cops. It's just when they're operating in the capacity as a police officer, they are operating towards prolonging injustice. That is a fact. The modern police departments were explicitly created to keep Black people in unpaid slave labor. That is true. The motivation, and sorry audience, but we're doing this. After emancipation, there was, and slavery is still legal in America. That's the important thing to know. The exception, there could be no slave labor except for criminals, convicted criminals. So in the South, they wanted a way to continue to subjugate Black people. So they created the police department as a means to arrest Black people and make them slaves again. And so why that is relevant to now is they kept records of that. So that's like, when they're in Black neighborhoods, they were arresting more people, which then led Gen 2 of cops seeing, oh my God, these Black neighborhoods, like they have so much more crime. We got to patrol them more often. We've got to watch out for things. We've got to be more on edge because they're committing more crime. Boom, generation 2, generation 3, boom, 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 all the way up to now. So you have even the most well-intentioned cop, like a good person, they're operating off of hundreds of years of this data that is intentionally skewed to make Black people look worse. So they arrest them at a disproportionately high rate. They kill them at a disproportionately high rate. And that is why people want to defund the police. There it is.
Easy enough.
It's like that's why this is why we learn history in school. People, like, it's like we learn math, we learn science, we learn things because they have practical applications in the real world. We learn history so that we can understand the context of things that exist and can see patterns in things happening so as not to repeat them. We don't just learn it for shits and gigs. Like, there's a function, a societal function to learning history.
Absolutely, there is.
And that has been a cop talk. So
that has been the cop talk. And, just to close out the cop talk, I think my favorite part of like Batman's interactions with the cops was his escape from the building.
Yeah,
like I think great. We touched on that earlier, but it was like, and all the other instances of like Batman disappearing when Jim Gordon turns his back, it's like, no, this is really how it happens. He punches him and has to run. He doesn't just disappear. It's
it's great. All right, that's enough about cops. Did we talk about everything we needed to in Vengeance, or we got more going on here?
I think so. I think, one thing that I want to chat about really briefly, we don't have to spend a lot of time on it, was that this movie thematically felt somewhat similar to The Joker, which is another DC film that came out, I think, about
2019
years ago.
Yeah,
3 years ago now. Thematically, they, it's going to happen that, it'll look aesthetically very similar because they both take place in this crime-ridden city of Gotham. Like, there's a lot of crime, but the aesthetics very similar. But there's also these interesting themes of like corruption and idealism, and even kind of, I think, the behaviors among the civilians is kind of similar too, between these two films as well.
I think the theme of like societal failings is definitely present in both. I think this does it much better than Joker does, in my opinion. I don't think Joker's that great, honestly. I think it's fine.
I liked it for sure.
I liked it fine. It was worth watching, but I haven't ever felt the urge to revisit it in the intervening 3 years. So
no, I'll rewatch it at some point, because I do appreciate that character, and I think he did such a great job. Like,
it's a great performance.
Great performance. But excuse me. So like, the Riddler's henchmen, they rise up because they feel really betrayed by the city. They feel betrayed by the politicians. They feel forgotten by, the Wayne family, like the Renewal Fund, and they're just tired of kind of accepting lies as truth. Similarly, the civilians in Joker, they turn their city upside down, after the Joker kills that guy on live TV. Spoilers, sorry. But, turns the city upside down because they feel ignored. They feel rejected. There's socioeconomic disparities that won't go away. So I feel like, there's some interesting parallels between these two stories, some interesting themes. And a part of me kind of, I know it's be a big ask, but part of me kind of wishes that they left the door open to connect the Batman and the Joker, those two films together, maybe. But I don't know. They certainly don't need to be connected, but I think that could have been interesting if they wanted to take that route. They could have.
Yeah, I just like, what's his name? Arthur Curry. Is that his name?
Arthur Flick.
Arthur Curry is someone else. Arthur Curry. Oh, that's fucking Aquaman. I'm so stupid. Arthur Fleck is not.
Too many Arthurs.
Yeah, I don't think he would be like an adequate main Joker. He's just like, he's just like a mentally ill person who needs help, and like shot a guy. The joke, he's not a mastermind. Like, he kind of stumbles into his fame.
Sure, yeah.
But I see what you're saying. Like, I don't know. I guess I'm just not that interested in that Joker universe.
That's totally fair. I feel like they didn't want to take that route, and I'm okay with it. It was like, oh, that could have been neat, but yeah. So about another universe, maybe they would have done that.
Yeah. One, and we'll get into negatives a little bit for a moment, but on the note of the Joker, I think the cameo of the Joker was at best fine, and at worst, like, completely unnecessary.
Yeah, it was okay. Like, it sets the stage for things they can do in a sequel, and I'm on board for that. But yeah, I was like, do we really need him?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I did like the implication that I think he and Batman have interacted before already. Like, the Joker is on Batman and Gordon's radar as a foe that has been fought. So when and if he comes back into the picture, that'll be interesting. They have an established relationship. So that'll be fun. I like that. But I didn't need the scene. I didn't think it was that.
Yeah, me too. And
necessary.
Yeah, it felt like just a little bit extra. And yeah, for all the things that we like about this film, we have an asterisk there, because there's plenty of things about this film that I feel like just kind of bothered me a little bit, or things that I wish didn't bother me, or just kind of like inconsistencies. So maybe we could dive into a few of those.
All right.
At this point now.
Go for it.
One thing, it's not a big deal. I have to remind myself, like, this isn't a big deal, because it's like, it's a superhero movie. It doesn't need to be as like super realistic as possible, but like, Bruce Wayne gets bashed and thrown around like no tomorrow sometimes in this film, and then instantly his body's healed like the next scene. Like, he doesn't show, like, they're like, do you remember that scene where he does he escapes from like the police department, right? And he does his little paraglider thing, and then he has this horrible fucking crash. Like, he has this horrible crash where his parachute gets like caught, and he gets like thrown like into like a bridge and like a truck, and then as he's like kind of like gets up and he's like limping away, he's like, oh my god, like, that was crazy, why, like, fuck. But then like the next fucking scene, he doesn't have a limp. Like, what the hell? Like, so yeah, I think the continuity of like the damage to his body could have been a little better throughout the film, but not a big deal, because it's a superhero film.
I did enjoy him diving off the building though, because at least to me it seemed like that was the first time he's done that.
Yeah,
because he seemed pretty scared, and then he was really bad at it.
Yeah, he was like, oh fuck.
Yeah, I like this is even more grounded than the Nolan ones in regard to that, because in Nolan, remember, he could just like touch the cape and it became wings pretty much, or like a glider. And then this, it's a separate thing that it's like a one use, and then it's gone. It was neat.
Yeah, I did appreciate that. And I also kind of like appreciated how all of this Batman tech existed, and we didn't really need an explanation like we did in like the Nolan trilogy, where it's like, Fox has to explain like what this thing is, so that way I can come back later in the film. Like, it was like, oh, it's neat when you explain to me how the tech works, but I don't need it always.
Right. And it was great as an origin in that version, but that's not what we're doing here. Like, we don't.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And kind of along that point too, at the end, there's that, I know that I just said I don't need things explained to me, because we're 2 years into a story, like, that's fine. We don't need to know everything about his tech. But there's that
the vial
thing. So he is in this altercation, and then like with one of the Riddler's henchmen, and then that guy's about to kill Selina, and then but Bruce is all injured, so he's like, I can't get up. But then he takes out this green vial out of nowhere and basically injects it into himself. And I'm assuming it's adrenaline.
Yeah, I think that's what we're meant to assume.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. But it's just like, this vial comes out of nowhere, and it's like, it's not referenced earlier in the film or anything. It's like, that could have been Bane venom for all I know. So it's just kind of like, it's like, what the fuck was that kind of moment? Like, I just wish they could have like referenced that earlier, so it could have been been like, oh, he's getting the thing out now for this final moment so he can whatever. Not a big
like
deal.
a setup for that payoff would have been fine. It wasn't as like it wasn't big enough for me to mind it, but I do see what you're saying. Like if he had talked about his tech at all, like that should have been included, but he really didn't.
Yeah, totally. And I guess one other thing too was just like, how was it that the Riddler was the only person to kind of make that connection that Bruce Wayne was Batman? Like, I know that they were both in this. I'm pretty sure he did, though.
No, he didn't. That's what the scene was making you think he did, because he's like talking about Bruce Wayne, and the trailer also makes it seem like he knows Batman is Bruce Wayne. But then when he does that, remember at the end, he's like, Bruce Wayne, he's the only one we didn't get. And when the we is him and Batman, because he thinks he and Batman are aligned.
Yeah, well, I got that.
Yeah, so he does not know that Bruce Wayne is Batman.
Okay, I was assuming that he did because of that whole scene.
Well, Bruce thought he did.
Yeah,
because he mistook the Riddler's hints, and then but that's that scene where he keeps saying like Bruce Wayne. It's like that's like the rising tension, and then I think the music kind of like dissipates when he says like he's the only one we didn't get, and like Bruce's mannerism shifts a little bit because he realizes he's not caught.
Right. Okay. Then that point is moot now. One inconsistency I found too. So you remember at the end where it's like the final scenes basically.
Yeah.
Bruce visits Selina at her mom's grave or whatever. He surprises Selina at the grave. She's like, Jesus, like, do you ever knock or say hello? And then she's like, okay, well, I guess I'll see you later. And then she drives off on a motorcycle, and then Bruce turns around and his motorcycle's right there. Like, did you not hear his motorcycle come up and like make all this noise? Like, how did he sneak up on you with that loud motherfucking bike? But small continuity error there.
It's it's the same way that he just vanishes instantaneously whenever someone turns around. It's just Batman bullshit. It's like, how did the Batmobile get to the side of the Penguin's warehouse? Batman bullshit.
Yeah, it was like, oh, he was planning that. He knew exactly where to place the vehicle.
Yeah, it's just like, it's
Batman
just some
bullshit.
Yeah, Batman bullshit.
That's good. I love that. Yeah, and I guess one other thing is just the excessive amount of rain. I know they were going for specifically those noir tropes.
It's just film noir.
There's probably like 5 scenes in the entire movie where it's like it's not raining. It's like, God damn it.
It does recontextualize the line from the opening monologue where it's like the city streets are crowded despite the rain. It's like, yeah, no shit. It's raining every fucking day.
Everyone's used to this way of life.
Yeah,
it's like goddamn Seattle.
Yeah. It's a comical amount, but like just because of the genre trope, it's whatever. It's like it's always raining in Blade Runner too. It's just
Yeah, it's just fitting for the tone.
It's part of the atmosphere.
Yeah. But yeah, otherwise I don't really have too many other major complaints with the film. I was very impressed with it through and through. Like, all the characters are great. Interactions are great. Shifting gears a little bit, or I guess, did you have any other like complaints about the film or anything?
No, I don't really have any complaints. After first walking out of it, I thought the character arcs were a little like undercooked, but the more I thought about it, the more that proved itself to be untrue. So, we talked about what they were, but the movie's dope as hell. Go see it.
Yeah, definitely. And the stage is definitely set up for a sequel.
Yes.
How would you feel about a sequel?
I want it. I want it a lot.
Good.
Me too. It is happening. Matt Reeves is developing the sequel right now.
So. Yes. Excellent.
Bring that cinematographer back too. Greg Fraser needed. I mean, the shots and it's like Batman has grown. He recognizes the importance of hope as part of his mission. I'd like to see Bruce Wayne doing more things. What would you like to see out of the sequel? I have a couple of things, but curious what you would like.
I'm not sure exactly what I'd like to see because I just want more of this. I'd kind of like to see like maybe a Robin type story, like maybe a
Okay.
Robin character gets introduced, or like, and that can kind of play out into like a Nightwing, or maybe he pairs up with a Nightwing, or maybe a whole Bat family can start to emerge from the woodwork. I remember seeing a quote from an interview that like Robert Pattinson's like, yes, I'm down for a Robin character, but only if he's like a 13, 14-year-old kid, like in the comics, you know, like he's actually like, he's not like a full teenager just yet. It's like,
right.
No, I hate the world. I'm a kid. I'm ready to take it on. So I thought that was kind of funny. What about you? What would you want to see in the sequel?
So the movie very organically sets up Penguin to be a primary antagonist force. So I think focus on that. Also, based on the thematic elements of corruption within the city government and the wealthy, I think that leads very cleanly into Court of Owls, which is a relatively new Batman thing, but it's basically like Gotham's elite are all part of this secret society called the Court of Owls, and they kind of manipulate things from the shadows. I think this would dovetail very nicely into that. Also, they killed off the DA in this movie, so bring in Harvey Dent, not as Two-Face though. For now, just an ally, like he is, like he was in the first half of The Dark Knight, but keep that the whole movie. And then later on, he can be Two-Faced.
That'd be fun. I'm into that.
Maybe like Oscar Isaac or something for Harvey Dent. That'd be cool.
Ooh, that would be neat. Well, wherever they take it, I'm down for Court of Owls, Penguin, Harvey Dent. Any of those directions sound great.
I prefer they don't do the Joker yet.
Yeah, give that a little breathing room.
I don't. We've had so much Joker, like almost as much Joker as we've had Batman.
Totally understand. Yeah. For me, Heath Ledger is still the king. So no one can really top that performance in my book.
Yeah. I'd be okay with Joker like being around doing shit, like in a similar to slightly lesser capacity as the Penguin in this. Maybe he's just like there, just being chaotic.
Yeah, just like I'm the villain over here.
Yeah, but like I don't want him as the main antagonist, at least for now. I think we have an organic setup with Penguin. Court of Owls is something we have not seen in live action, so do that. But yeah. All right. Any final thoughts on the Batman?
No, I think we just about covered it. But yeah, it's a fantastic movie. Really kind of blew me away. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, I recommend it.
Yep. Same. And I guess like to bring up this stupid discourse again, this is what people who are critical of the MCU are saying that it's missing. This element of style and tone. And they're right. It's true. The MCU does not have this because they make 4 movies a year. There's no time for that. So
yeah,
I would like, again, I'm pleading with Kevin Feige to slow the fuck down, make less movies, and do more of this in the MCU. They would benefit from it. And the MCU used to have more style and deeper character stuff, and they left a lot of that behind. I still love the MCU. Don't get me wrong. It's great, but it's not on the level of filmmaking that this is. And I don't think there's really any room for debate on that. Sorry.
Oh yeah. This one feels like an artsy superhero movie, with a very unique spin, like Logan, like in its own right, standalone kind of film. And the MCU definitely needs more of those types of stories that are really, they got a specific vision, like Matt Reeves did with this movie. Like they need a specific vision for what this movie is going to look like on the other end, and not be as focused on like continuity and all that.
Right. And it seems, in fairness, like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is pushing a little bit more towards that. You got Sam Raimi back. But we'll see. And I'm not trying to shit on the MCU. It's great in its own right. It's trying to do something different, which is fine. But with the predominance of those movies, maybe, just take your time a little bit more with them. Do this.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, great shit. Let's transition to some other stuff real quick. What else have you been watching, reading, playing, whatever?
Yeah, so I just yesterday I finished watching this movie on Netflix. It was a documentary called Crack.
Okay.
So it was quite literally a documentary that's just like outlining like how crack, the drug, changed America, during the 80s and into the late 90s. It's very interesting. I mean, it was a lot of like interviews with former drug dealers and drug users and cultural activists and scientists and historians and stuff like that. So it was a well-rounded documentary, and it kind of spoke to a lot of things that you might expect, like, oh yeah, crack is really because of Reagan. Reagan's the problem. Reagan's a big problem that a lot of things kind of circle back to, like, oh, you really dropped the ball in a lot of ways.
So did he drop the ball, or did he do exactly what he wanted?
Yeah. He did just the right amount to appease his alien overlords. But yeah, that was a good movie. I'd recommend checking that one out.
Okay.
At some point. It's just kind of interesting. Also continuing to watch more Studio Ghibli movies or rewatching them. So we rewatched Princess Mononoke the other day. Always such a classic. I love that one. Still got plenty of them to watch. And I just the other day I also finished the first season of Young Justice finally.
Okay, cool.
So getting through that, and that's very entertaining. It's just fun. It's just a fun adult action superhero show, and it's just kind of fun to watch. But that's about it for me. Dylan, what about you? What have you been up to?
So I finished reading Elantris, the first published Brandon Sanderson novel. It was pretty good. Not my favorite of his books, but it was also his first published one, so that makes sense. But he did a crazy thing earlier this week. He put up a YouTube video, and it was titled "Time to Come Clean." And I was like, okay, what's this? And he started off the video. He's like, I have been lying to you, and I'm sorry, and I can't do it anymore. And he was like, over the last, he talked about how like the pandemic was hard and all that stuff. And it's like, and the way I coped with that was I wrote another book, and he just put like a big manuscript on the table. And then as the video went on, he's like, and I haven't been totally honest with you in this video either, because I actually wrote 3 more books and what will become a graphic novel. And then he launched a Kickstarter to where it's like over the course of 2023, you will get mailed a copy of each of the books. So
wow, that's cool.
So I backed it, and I'm gonna get 4 hardcover books from these new secret projects. Basically, like, because he wasn't traveling and touring around anymore, he had a shit ton of extra time, and he was like, I guess I'll just write more books.
Yeah, might as well. That's super cool.
Yeah. But in addition to Elantris, I have started reading it came out last year, I think, To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. It is a new sci-fi novel from the author of Aragon, Christopher Paolini. So far, it's pretty cool. I'm liking it. I'm about 120 something pages in. And then the big one for me, I have been playing Elden Ring since like last Friday, and it's crazy. It's so good.
Are you dying a lot?
Yeah. So the first major boss, his name is Margit the Fell Omen. He killed me 30 something times.
Nice.
But when I finally beat him, it was so satisfying. There's like I'm not a big FromSoft guy. Like, I've tried Dark Souls before and I couldn't get very far. But Elden Ring is open world. So if you get stuck at a boss, you can just go do open world stuff, which is still challenging, but reasonably so, whereas the bosses are not super reasonable sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's like there's a feeling in the boss fight where there's a moment you realize, like, oh shit, this is it. This is the one. I fucking got him. And it's so rewarding because you've put in the work. Like, you know how tough the fight is because it's killed you 20 fucking times, but you've learned. Like, you've learned their attack patterns, you know what to do, and then you just get their ass. And the exploration of the open world, it's Breath of the Wild and Zelda Breath of the Wild, and this are the 2 best open world games I have ever played.
Wow.
in terms of exploration and making you feel like you're on an adventure. And this does it better than Breath of the Wild.
Wow.
Because like you're exploring, and in Breath of the Wild, like exploration is awesome, right? But usually like you go to the top of this really tall mountain, you get a pretty view and a Korok seed. Like that is your reward for exploration, which is fine. But in this, it's like there might be a secret boss, or there might just be a new item, or you click on a thing and it teleports you to a random spot on the map on the other end of the world. And
interesting.
And because it's Souls combat, like the tension is there, because any enemy could kill you in 4 or 5 hits. Like even the weak ones can still get you. So it's like there is an actual sense of danger in every second of exploration you have. It's so good.
That's fun. I'm into that.
Yeah, and I finally beat the like first whole dungeon. And I'm into the second main area now, which you can explore. You can just bypass the first main dungeon if you wanted to. Like, and I found that there's a secret passageway like around it into the next area, and you can just do that if you want.
Nice.
It's such a good game. But yeah,
let's check that out.
Yeah, if you can, see, you either need a PlayStation or a PC that can run it.
Yeah.
But, it's awesome. But yeah, that's it for me.
So, right on.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much for listening to episode 30 of Play Pause Rewind. Greatly appreciate everyone who's been downloading, listening to our episodes. You guys rock. And if you guys have like any content requests for things down the line that you want to hear us talk about, feel free to let us know. You can tweet at us or send us an email. I don't recall exactly what that email is. Dylan, do you?
Oh, play pause rewind pod at gmail.com.
Thank you. But yes, thank you. And please, if you like the content that we've been putting out, please give us a subscribe or a follow. We really appreciate it. Dylan, in the meantime, where can people find you online until our next episode?
On Twitter at D-Day Movies, on Instagram at Dylan D1026, on YouTube at D-Day Movies, and on Twitch at D-Day_movies. What about you?
People can follow me online at Niles Got No Styles on Instagram in particular. That's all I'm doing these days.
All righty. Well, thank you all so much for watching and or listening. We will see you guys back in 2 weeks for, I don't know, figure it out.
Next one. Yeah.
All right. Have a good one, everybody.
Peace. Stay safe. Bye.
Bye.